Hey, this is Brian. Thanks for watching Kies. Whether you own a Porsche with center locks or maybe the thought of them intrigues you, today I'm going to teach you how to remove, install, and properly torque them to turn you into a CENTERLOCK Pro. Let's start out by reviewing all of the tools needed for today's job. Then I'll walk you through step by step as I swap out the factory wheels with some ANRKYs. Now, when it comes to the tools needed for the job, the first two you can actually find in the front. On the driver's side, there's a little compartment. You're going to have your main adapter to remove the center lock, and then there's a little tool in here to remove the center cap. Let's head over to the table and we'll talk about what else you need. Now, in addition to the tools that come with the car, you are going to need a few additional items. The first thing you're going to need is a breaker bar with a 3/4 inch drive. You're going to need a torque wrench with a 3/4 inch drive that can do 444 foot-pound of torque. You're going to need this special paste, and don't worry, we have everything linked for you down in the description below for ease. We also recommend having some gloves, some microfiber towels, some 70% isopropyl alcohol, and just for fun, while we're there, we're going to be upgrading the center caps to these matte black OEM Porsche ones, just to give it a little more style. First things first, we're gonna remove these little center caps with this special tool. What you wanna do, there's a little slot in here. You just slide the end of this in there, and then you just very carefully just pry it out, just like that. The only thing securing this in there is this little rubber O-ring on the back. Then you can take your center lock adapter, you're gonna press it right in here, and you're gonna hear an audible click. Okay, now that's fully installed. At this point, what we need to do is we need to have another person, Zach's gonna help us out with this, press the brake. Because these are torqued to 444 foot-pounds, it's extremely tight and the wheel is gonna wanna turn. So you're gonna have an extra person in the car pressing the brake, giving you extra support. Now, while he's in the car, he's also going to have to keep a firm grip on the steering wheel, especially when we're working with the front wheels, because as we're trying to get these loose and then tight again, the wheel is going to move, so it's gonna be very helpful if he holds that wheel nice and strong. All right, now you can grab your breaker bar and it is time to remove the wheel. If you take a look at the center lock, it is printed on there which direction is which. You can see it is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it's standard thread, and it is written, if you ever get confused, it's the exact same on all four sides of the car, so even on the opposite side, it is going to be exactly the same. Now, another important note when you're removing the wheels is that Porsche recommends that you pull up and don't push down, and here's why. Even though I'm about 215 pounds and I can bounce on this, it's not enough pressure to remove the center lock. You need to pull up because sometimes you're going to be limited by your body weight. Now, you'll notice right now that we do not have the vehicle jacked up. That's because we want the weight on the wheel with Zach pressing the pedal for that extra resistance. As soon as we start to break it loose, we will be jacking the vehicle up to remove it the rest of the way. So with that, here's my deadlift. Oh my gosh. Ugh. There you go. So I'm just gonna do it about 90 degrees or so, and then from there, we can jack the vehicle up, remove it the rest of the way. Now with the vehicle off the ground, we can remove this by hand. Once you get through that initial torque, it actually gets very simple to move just by hand. You shouldn't need any other additional tools. Now, while you're doing this, I like to make sure that the wheel is not going to fall off or hit our nice carbon ceramic brakes. And that's what everything looks like. So we're just gonna set this to the side right over here and then carefully pull the wheel straight off. Now, if you're new to CENTERLOCKS, the way that it works is it has these little nubs that are over here more so on the hub, and these will actually go into these holes in the back of the wheel, and then everything is just held on by a single center lock. Now with CENTERLOCKS, one thing that's very interesting, once you start to put this in here, and even if I just twist it a couple revolutions here and I pull this off, there's actually this little portion in the middle that acts as a lock. So even though this is nowhere near tight, what you'll notice is I can click it on tighter, kind of sounds like a safe, but the lock will keep the wheel from falling off. Even if they weren't torqued perfectly, especially in a race situation where they might be pulling these off and on with an impact gun, what's gonna happen is the lock will protect you and keep everything safe. And one of the things you'll notice on the tool is it has this little center portion. The only job of this is to depress the lock so that you can twist it backwards. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do that. Okay, just like that. Now that we have the center lock off the table, I'm going to clean off the old paste. To do this, I just use 70% alcohol, seems to work great. And then I'm going to show you how to reapply it before we install the new ANRKY wheels. All right, at this point, everything is pretty well cleaned up. This stuff is very sticky, it's very gross, and it's nearly impossible to get all of it off, so don't worry if it's not absolutely perfect. But now it's time, I like to use a little paintbrush, as you can see, to evenly spread a new coating on. Then you can take the wheel that you're going to be installing, line everything up. Then you have to make sure that you get those holes lined up in the back, like so. And then at this point, just take your center lock by hand, and you can very carefully start to thread it in. All right, at this point, I've asked Zach to jump back in the car, hold the wheel, and press down on the brake. Now what we're going to do, again, we're going to need to lift up, not press down. We're going to tighten the wheel to 444 foot-pounds of torque. Then I'm going to put the adapter on my breaker bar again. We're going to loosen it by 90 degrees, and then we're going to put the adapter back on my torque wrench to do a final tightening of 444 foot-pound of torque. Now, one important note for the person that's going to be inside the car, you have to have the car not started, but in accessory mode. Otherwise, you're not going to get the brake pressure you need to hold the wheel tight while torquing down to 444 foot-pound torque. Okay, so you do an initial tightening, then we're going to loosen it with the breaker bar by 90 degrees. Then we'll do our final torquing to 444. Now the wheel is properly torqued and the lock is in the correct position. If your lock is stuck in, what you want to do is basically just poke it until it pops back out, because if the lock is not out like this, you do not have that safety mechanism. Since ours is good to go and fully locked, we are good to install our center cap again. Again, this is the one we took off. Personally, I think with these wheels and all, it just doesn't look that good. So we got some of these, the genuine Porsche ones. What you want to do, if you look over here, there's a little bit of a groove. This notch at the top of the crest goes into that groove, and then the bottom goes over here where there's a little indentation for that special tool. So just line that up and just press them in. And that's everything you need to know with basic hand tools, how to install, remove, and torque center locks. So now that you're a pro, let us know in the comments, is it worth it to get center locks, or are you going with the standard 5? For all the links to all the tools and products we use in today's video, in addition to torque specs, see the links down below in the description. Thanks for watching today's video. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.